Theoretically, the more money you spend on something in government, the better results you would want to have. But that is not happening in the state of Kansas, where the spending per pupil has hit all-time highs. But what are we seeing? A 10-year downward trend in ACT college readiness. James Franko is with the Kansas Policy Institute on KCMO Talk Radio, joining us on 95.7 FM. All right, James, these numbers, just how bad are they for the state of Kansas right now?
Hey, Pete, appreciate the time this morning. Thanks for having us on. It's not just that it's bad for the state of Kansas. It's that we all send our kids off to school every day, hoping, building our life, the houses we have, where we choose to live, those kind of things, trusting that those schools are going to take care of our kids. And there's lots of teachers and others working very, very hard. But when only 17% of kids on the ACT are ready for college, that's something that should be setting off alarm bells for folks, especially to the point in your intro there, where we're spending over $19,000 per kid on average across the state. Some districts more, some less, but on average, state, local, and federal, that's $19,000. I mean, that's a lot of money, and those results just aren't what any of us would expect of our own kids, or let alone, the 500,000 K-12 kids around the state.
And you look at these numbers, $19,000 per pupil in the state of Kansas on average. That is up about 50% from 10 years ago when it was at $13,000 per pupil. And 10 years ago, 32% of Kansas students were college ready via the ACT. That number is now down to 17%. I mean, spending's gone up 50% per kid, and the ACT readiness has almost been cut in half, James. It's hard to be that bad, is it not?
Yes, and the important thing on spending especially is that that's still $4,000 and change over inflation. So we're not talking about money not keeping up with inflation and where we've been over the last half decade post-COVID and everything like that. This is spending has increased far above inflation, and the numbers on achievement just aren't there. And it's not just one test. You could say, it's just the ACT, not every kid's going to college. That doesn't really matter. But the National Assessment for Educational Progress has decreased over that same period. Even further, if you look back to when, I would have been in Kansas public schools, to where it was 1 in 3 kids, 8th grade, reading proficiency was considered proficient on NAEP, and now even more than that, 36%, and now it's 25%, so 1 in 4. So it's not just any one test. This is multiple indicators showing that our kids just aren't getting the education that they deserve and that all of us hope for when we send them out the door in the morning. And I'm sure there's people driving their kids to school right now listening to this, and that can be a very tough pill to swallow, and it begs the question, what are we going to do different?
Well, that was where I was going next. I mean, what does different look like, whether it's at the state level, whether it's at the local level? What is part of the solution here, James?
I mean, it's a little trite to say there's no one solution, but it's also true in that it's going to take a lot of different things. The State Board of Education has to get their act together. They can't lower the standards and tell us that achievement's actually increasing, which they've done recently. It has to be the state legislature and ultimately the governor saying, we want something different. That can be school choice, to where every dollar follows that kid to wherever they go to school. It can be micro schools, homeschool, private schools, whatever. And then at the local level, it has to be about local boards of education focusing on achievement. That's what they're doing at every board meeting. The people who are running for those offices, the people who are holding those offices, aren't saying, what are we doing on building maintenance? Not that that's not important, but we're focused on student achievement. How does our maintenance backlog, or how we're doing busing, or the cookie that we're having for Spirit Week or whatever, if that doesn't directly influence how our kids are learning, then it doesn't belong in a board meeting. So it's from top to bottom across the state. Something's got to change.
You got a problem here, too, and we've talked a lot about this the last few days, because in the Blue Valley District, there was this teacher who was fired for helping a special needs kid. I won't get into the weeds on that with you, but what it sounds like happened here is that there were board members who knew it was the wrong thing to do, but they did not want to buck the administration and make the administration look bad. And how big of a problem is that around the state and just in general right now, where you have the elected school board members who frankly just become lackeys of the administration, which is not how it's supposed to be. They're supposed to be the checks and balances of the administration. And it sounds like in many cases, they're not interested in doing that part of the job.
No, I think that's been our experience. And when we're talking to folks around the state, we've got our Kansas School Board Resource Center that helps train up local Board of Education members to focus on one thing, and that one thing is student achievement. And that, the incident in Blue Valley, we want to make sure that our kids are safe. But then if the people who are ultimately democratically accountable that have to stand at the ballot, that have to implement these policies and follow through with them, need to be in charge of this situation and not just rubber stamping something that the administration did, and standing up for those teachers, standing up for the kids. And it can be on this instance in Blue Valley, it could be across the board, but it's got to be focused on keeping those kids safe and making sure that they have the educational opportunities that they deserve.
And then last thing on this, James Franko, Kansas Policy Institute, is here on KCMO. When it comes to right now the cost, which continues to seem like it largely goes towards administrative work and is taken out of the classroom, and I think that's a disservice to the students and to the teachers, who I believe still by and large are working hard to do the right thing by the kids. What does that relationship need to look like? How do we reset that conversation?
So as far as getting money into the classroom, there is a line in the state accounting manual that says if the instruction line item fails, then nothing else in education spending matters. And that's not me talking, that's the State Department of Education's accounting handbook. And instead of saying, here's our budget and here's how it's going to trickle down into the classrooms, this is, again, where the local boards can really step up and do something, and the teachers can advocate for themselves, is what does this classroom at this building need in order to succeed? And we build our budgets from the classroom out, and we get more money into instruction. And again, this isn't me saying what counts as classroom spending and what doesn't, but it is what counts as instruction. Is we get that number as high as it reasonably can be, because everything else just supports what's going on in the classroom, not the other way around. And these schools, many of them have huge cash balances that they're not spending, that would, if we tapped into those kinds of things, if we built those budgets from the classroom out, then teachers wouldn't have to go into their own pocket to buy supplies or what have you. They would have the resources they need and the flexibility that they need to educate kids and meet them where they are.
I just looked this up at openpayrolls.com, and I admit there may be some of this that isn't entirely accurate, but you've got 15 employees in the Blue Valley School District making at least $180,000 a year. You have 4 making 5, 6 making over, 7 making over $197,000 a year. I mean, that's a lot of money in the administration, and the administration continues to grow. That is not in the classroom. And I think that's a shame there, James, and I think the whole system needs a reset, and I don't think it happens overnight, but someone needs to lead the way on that.
No, I think that's exactly right, and it stinks that the way that teachers earn more is by leaving the classroom.
Yeah, yes.
They get their master's degrees, they try to earn more money for their family, and then what we do is we take them out of the classroom, as opposed to saying, okay, how can we empower this teacher to reach more kids, to impact more lives, and reward them for the work that they're doing, as opposed to saying, okay, Mrs. Smith, you want to make more money, you want to increase in your career, we're going to pull you out of the classroom. And that just doesn't work. We need to be rewarding those teachers, and this doesn't merit pay. I know we're wrapping up here. Sorry, Pete. It's making sure that we're driving the outcomes that we want. And what we want is great teachers in great environments educating kids.
That's exactly right. James Franko, Kansas Policy Institute. Great job there, James. Thanks so much for being here.
Have a good one, Pete. Take care.